Counting calories is out. Weight loss is an internal game, what I like to call weight release, and it all starts from within. You're listening to Confidence from Within, a podcast for women ready to feel good about their bodies, rediscover their confidence, and share their brilliance with the world. I am your host, Juliana Leamen, mind body weight release expert and lifelong health seeker. And I am so pleased to have you here. Let's get started. You're listening to episode number 194 of Confidence from Within podcast. And as always, I am your host, Juliana Leamen. And today I have a very special conversation with my guest, Ryde. And we talk about regulating your nervous system. And this is a value-packed episode with so many golden nuggets. And I'm just very excited to share this with you today. Before we jump right in, and I will tell you in a moment all about our special guest, I just want to let you know that we have a brand new training if you're interested in uncovering how we can use the power of functional DNA testing to help you customize your weight release journey. All you have to do to get access to the special training is go into the show notes under the Get Started below, and you can click the link and be taken straight into this free advanced training where we share step by step the entire journey with you. So back to today's episode. Tree and I discussed how to really understand nervous system dysregulation, and she talks about the power of suggestion and how words can really impact our health and well-being. We also talk about how to change our behavior by understanding our common human tendencies of coping and the importance of self-forgiveness and how to make actual change in your life. Tree also shares how we can respond to life instead of just reacting to difficult events and difficult situations. And she has done a brilliant job at making us understand our minds from a very simple yet transformational perspective. So let me properly introduce you to Tree. Tree's journey began as a young girl where she learned about human behavior and patterns by navigating life's basic needs. Her passion for sewing and designing clothes since a tender age led her into the fashion world of Toronto. Through hands-on experiences with diverse individuals, she gained street smarts, survival skills, and the understanding of human behavior. Over the last 20 years, she has honed her expertise working with thousands of individuals and businesses. She specializes in restructuring and transforming human behavior with individuals and corporations, offering fresh perspectives and innovative solutions. Her journey has been marked by a relentless pursuit of understanding human behavior, and she now shares her knowledge to create positive change in individuals and businesses across the country through her two businesses, One Burlington Hypnosis Center and Business Growth Results. Here is Tree. Hi, Tree. Welcome to the show. I am very grateful to have you joining us today. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, it is a pleasure. And I'm very curious about our topic today and to learn more about the wonderful things you do. But let's get started where my favorite spot, which is by getting you to define confidence for us.
So what I feel confidence is people being comfortable around other people is a true confidence. And what I mean by being like comfortable around other people is not only in social situations, but even when it's completely silent, right? So that when from a hypnosis and neurolinguistics perspective, that your nervous system is really calm and relaxed, and you're calm and relaxed within yourself. Nervous system, so spiritually, mentally, and physically, that there's this nice sort of hum within, and that you're really comfortable no matter where you are, what you're doing, who you're with. And having the core understanding that we are all just ordinary humans just going along on our journey. And even if I go a little bit higher level than that, having the core understanding that we are literally pockets of energy on a planet all in one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That is such a beautiful and unique description. We've been doing this show for almost 4 years now, and I ask this constantly, and that was so special and unique. I really love the definition. And I think a good starting point to treat for us to open our conversation, you mentioned the nervous system, which I think is one of the primary areas that a lot of the women listening to our show are curious about. There's a lot of dysregulation in our nervous system in today's modern world. So tell us a little bit more about that and link to it the modality of hypnosis that you work with and how does that help? First of all, on a big picture level, then we can get more specific in terms of helping us sort of get to the regulation, like the hum that you mentioned.
Yeah, so with hypnosis and neurolinguistics, like we see a lot of clients that um, their nervous system is not regulated. It's not regulated because they're being pulled in all kinds of different directions. They're trying to please everybody else but themselves, right? Or they're putting so much pressure on themselves to complete so many tasks.
Yeah.
Or their nervous system isn't regulated because they're not sleeping properly, because they're running through tasks in their head. I should do this, I should do that, I need to do this, I need to do that. Or their nervous system isn't regulated because they're in a heightened emotional state. Okay, so us as humans, we cannot unexperience things. We also are in an emotional state every moment of every single day,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're in a
Yeah.
situation every moment of every single day. So to get to that hum, it's different for everybody. So even for me to answer that,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, well, if I said one thing, people can be like, well, I'm not into that. Well, cool. What are you into? So it's exploring what interests you, what makes you feel good. Us as humans, we're feeling beings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's how we operate in our nervous system is feeling. It's like this vibration, it's that hum, right? And when society around us, or if we're choosing to get pulled in all of these directions and not create enough boundaries, then we're literally just throwing our energy towards everybody else, as opposed to keeping at least a little bit for ourselves to be able to um, be settled or grounded within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the language that I use here on the podcast for that feeling good, very deeply calm and authentic version of self is like our inner priorities, which is deeply rooted in our inner value structure, right? Which is the place that we're the most centered and grounded. And so for somebody listening that they feel that there is some sort of dysregulation on them, tell us first, like, how can hypnosis as a modality assist someone in that journey?
Absolutely. So, with hypnosis, it's one of the things we like to talk about is the power of suggestion, right? So, it's not only through verbal communication, but it's also through nonverbal communication, right? And through self and others. Us as women, we are what is called generally, we are other sorted. And what I mean by that is us as a species, females, have the ability to have kids, so we are other sorted. Men are what's called self-sorted.
Mm,
So even from the power of suggestion, if we're looking at just taking care of others, then it's creating those boundaries through the power of suggestion, creating and again, it's unique to everybody. So that's why I'm sort of stumbling a little bit, because
mm,
it's like it's unique to everybody, and it's the power of suggestion. Certain words hit the nervous system in certain ways. So when people are finding that relaxation, there's certain unique words to themselves. Some people, when you talk about spirituality, their brain goes to God or angels. Um, some people, if you say God or angels, their brain goes to spirituality. So the words definitely hit the nervous system. Even think about you hop in an elevator, going up, going down.
yes.
It's very, very important when it comes to our nervous system, when it comes to each and every unique human being, that we're looking at what needs to happen. Even just saying to somebody, good job,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
it hits, or hey, you're a good person.
Hmm.
Okay. And even though those are words, but through hypnosis and neurolinguistics, we're getting the person so very relaxed, so they're so open to having these suggestions unique to them that then
Mm.
they can surrender it and change the way that they're operating in their own mind.
Mm-hmm. That is beautiful, actually. I had one experience that I wanted to just kind of mention here
Yeah, yeah.
in like month or so ago working with a practitioner, and she was very much like, I've always been a very intellectually driven person, less somatic in my experiences of the world. And she has been really worked with me on feeling more things in my body. And she went through a list, oh my gosh, through like maybe 40, 50 words, and really asking for me to feel the words in my body. And there's like a couple of them, maybe like 3 or so, that I really felt deep into my core. It was such an incredible experience. Whereas other words are beautiful and they're special, or I associated, yeah, this is a painful word, but it didn't evoke a real true emotion in my body. So I had a like vivid experience of what you just shared of how different
Mm.
words actually have a very different power within us, right? It's so individual in that sense.
It is so individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really stems from going back to we can't unexperience things, right?
Yeah.
So whatever it is that that person experienced, and the dialogue that's in our head is that of our worst critic growing up.
Yeah.
So even that sort of background track that's happening for people to learn the freedom or feel the freedom, like some of those words that you described, it probably gave you some freedom. It
Mm-hmm.
opened you up in some way. It allowed you to feel in some way that you needed to feel to move through or to get to where it is that you need to go.
Yeah.
And these are, yeah, these are powerful things.
Mm-hmm. It was almost like little portals, actually. So I knew what I needed to do next, sort of like embody or process some of those things, even positive words that were really meaningful, but were attached to experiences. Like I said, we can't unfeel the things and
Yeah, yeah.
unexperience them. So let's just say, like, chronologically, is there an age group in like from baby to adulthood that those things get imprinted more that really dictate some of those, adult experiences, or is it something that consistently happens throughout our lives from your experience?
I would actually say both, right? So as soon as we're born, we end up in patterns that are dictated from our parents and family,
Yeah.
right? Like what's right, what's wrong, when we're getting reprimanded or not. And so then when we get into adolescence, it's like we have a little bit more freedom. We're exploring things. Some rules may alter in terms of the ones that we
Yeah.
grew up with. But generally, even in the nervous system, it's like um, the nervous system is such a powerful thing. I'll tell you a little story. My I broke up with somebody. I was engaged with somebody, and I broke up with them. Anyways, and so anytime that I would drop something on the floor, that person that I was with, I'd get a And so because I was with this individual for a decade and we didn't end up getting married and we split up. And so here I am, fast forward, I bought my own house, I'm in my own place, and I'm dating my now husband. And I was cooking brie. I took the brie out of the oven and then I dropped the lid off the brie and it just smashed all over the floor. And my nervous system, I froze because I was waiting for the
Mm-hmm.
but I literally just froze. And my now husband ran around the island and he like, "Are you okay? Did you hurt something?" And just so my nervous system was reacting to my past.
Yeah.
But what was happening in that moment was completely different.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
took it took a good 5 or 10 minutes for my nervous system to kind of recalibrate to what actually happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's true to answer your question. When we are born and then we become adults, our nervous system takes longer to catch up to what is actually happening to us in the future. So even if we were with one person at one time and that relationship was a certain way, and then we're with somebody else, or even our relationship with ourselves, and then we are experiencing something different, and that relationship with ourselves change.
Yeah, absolutely. I also had an experience when I moved from Brazil to Canada in my early 20s that, my experience living back home was
Oh
of
yeah.
always constant fear. It was a very like fear for your physical safety, right? Especially I was at university age, so driving by myself. So it was a very heightened, stressful
Yes.
period in my life. And then coming to Canada and now knowing that there's only one little lock on the door rather than the four massive bolts that we used to have in our house that sound like you're opening a castle door. I really struggled at the first couple of years because I was so accustomed to being in such a hyper alert that when I didn't have the physical danger perception of anymore, I almost didn't know how to self-regulate in a lower, cortisol threshold. And I think I just started finding issues on other things, just like to even feel comfortable and safe. And, until I worked on that very specifically with someone and she helped me really understand that's what was happening and then, regulate it to my new normal or my new baseline. So, it was probably my first real like physical experience with my dysregulated nervous system to really open up so much of my interest in the topic today. So just wanted to share that as well.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing for us as humans. We're also a species. So you're talking about like fight or flight,
Yeah.
and you're constantly on high alert, and then all of a sudden not to just turn that off. That's a
Hmm.
very difficult thing to do. So good for you for getting help to help fix that for yourself, because
Yeah.
that would really suck for like if you kept that and that you were like, for example, an example of that is my dad used to live almost Jane and Finch,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
and then he moved. He wanted to be closer to me, so he moved to like this nice beautiful area in Hamilton, and he's still locking his doors, double locks on the doors, and like all this stuff. And so he had hip surgery, and I had to go there because he called and he's like, I can't get out of bed. But he put all the locks. He even had these things jammed under the doorknob, and I had to use my shoulder to break into his house. So yeah, so things like that are still going on, and it's almost part of like the belief system, right? Like, and you talk about that with your clients as well, like the belief system within
Yeah.
yourself. If you're believing that this can happen, then you're creating the dialogue in your head about it.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful segue to the sort of next like area that I wanted to explore with you and even bringing back your Brie, breaking the lid story. I think it's very like a great example there. If the intention is so you recognize the pattern, right? The event happens, you froze again, different context. How can we change either the belief or the behavior so that we can start freeing ourselves from some of those almost like automatic like loops that we get stuck on?
Yeah, great question. So the biggest thing is about having new experiences. So because we can't unexperience things, if you're just thinking about it and or like for example, you can't just tell somebody, "Oh, well just be happy."
Yeah.
"Oh, well just go do this." Well, when we suggest things to other people, yeah, we're maybe planting a seed, but a lot of people they can't if they're process oriented people, they can't understand, or they can't if they don't know the process, so they're never going to do it, right?
Right.
Or if they figure out the process, or sometimes can get people can get lost in the weeds and then just blow it off and get nowhere. So and this is actually part of our drivers as humans. So, us as humans, we fall into one or two of four different categories. So, people, places, tasks, processes. People, places, tasks, processes. So, for myself, I'm a people, places. So, for me, if I need to do anything, I know if I'm procrastinating, I need to get people around me to get myself going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, my husband, he's very process oriented. So he likes to like, okay, what do I need to do first? What do I need to do second? So even as a business owner, um, I have people that do my processes, and I got better at tasks. But
Nice.
in terms of people. So when we are really looking for that change, and it has to be through experiences, it has to be through what your drivers are, right? Like if somebody just like for me, I have to have experiences through with other people. For other people that are process oriented, they need to have that experience, the experience of creating the process, the experience of um, going through it and living it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so when you live it, all of a sudden it starts to change, and then it's rehearsing, 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 repetition to create that change.
That is so brilliant. And I am almost certain that my two would be processes. I'm a heavy process
You are
driven
heavy
individual.
processes for
Uh,
sure.
I was like that in corporate and definitely my business, like from the get-go, and places as well. Like one for me, like even in my house, I have like 5 different work office stations, which is kind of like maybe extreme, but some depending on how I feel, like shifting my physical environment is
Yeah.
all I need sometimes to reignite. And there's different projects I only feel like working in specific places with specific lighting. It's very particular. And I never thought about it from the driver's perspective. So that is
Yeah.
really cool.
So you just taught everybody about your process around your places. And even looking at you, you can look at the places like beautiful. So which
Yeah.
which going back to the nervous system perspective, it calms your nervous system,
Yeah.
right? If somebody told you to get something done and you need to do it with people and you have to do all of these tasks, your nervous system would just go sideways.
Hmm.
And you'd never get it done.
Yeah. And I think besides even the individual, this has such potential. I know you do that with businesses as well, such potential for teams, right? Because you're, of course, going to be working with people with the different combinations of the drivers, technically following the same setup, right? And from my time at corporate, like I remember such a diverse array of personalities, and some people thrive, some people struggle if we're very much like everybody has to follow the same direction. So that is so much potential. My brain thinks
Absolutely.
like for other areas.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, because I work with businesses as well, and I see this with some. If a business owner is process oriented, they need to make sure that they're hiring people and tasks or the opposite of what they have. Whereas sometimes when I'm working with business owners, they're frustrated because their employees aren't following the processes. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, it's a good thing because you don't want to get stuck in processes. Like some processes are great, but as society changes, as the economy changes, as business changes, even as businesses grow or the industry shifts, processes also need to shift with that. So it's okay to stay in the processes, but being okay that the processes change as well.
Absolutely. And that really like clearly talks about like the whole looking at the behavior side of things. What about the belief side? And maybe we can pick a specific example. Either somebody that gets very much stuck like financially or stuck with their weight, like those very core human desires that love, finances, and like career and physical health. What is potentially some things we can consider if we want to change the belief to even believe that we can achieve the desired outcome?
Yeah, so great question. And it's interesting for us as human beings, there's two main categories that we fall into when we're operating as humans. So one is some people are freedom minded and another side is security minded. So when people are looking for changes and they're looking for their belief system, somebody that's freedom minded, their belief system operates on how can I stay free? Right? So for
Right.
example, if it's somebody wanting to lose weight, um, what I call is what's if they're freedom minded and they're trying to lose weight, sometimes they fall into the category of what I like to call the good time Charlietta, right? Like so they're so they're like, woohoo, everything's amazing, so I can overeat, I can drink, right?
Right.
And so they're and which is sabotaging themselves, right? So their belief
Yeah.
system doesn't align with their outcome and they're sabotaging themselves. For security minded people, their belief system is that they're trying to get everything to be secure for them. So if they're trying to lose weight, they need to have every box ticked before they actually start something. So they might buy gym clothes, they might research recipes, they might like do this or do that. So the belief alignment needs to shift, and both are based on rules that they choose that they believe is keeping them safe, which is actually doing the opposite. So it's really having like a realization of where that person lands, and they have to understand within themselves that to create a rules alignment to shift the belief system to align with the outcome. So whether it's changing a bad habit, even whether it's biting nails or like I'll give you an example. So I also work with children, and the common tendencies of children that I work with are like wetting the bed, nail biting, or fear of needles. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are all belief systems. So the wetting the bed, and it's subconscious. It's subconscious. So the wetting the bed, the subconscious knows that they can wake up, their parents clean the sheets, the parents put clean sheets on the bed. So from the kid's nervous system perspective, even though they might be getting reprimanded, or they might be whatever the conversation is with the parents, the child, the nervous system still thinks that they're everything's fine. They could potentially continue wetting the bed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the belief system is based on whatever we're creating in our own mind, right? I'll repeat that. The belief system is created by whatever it is that we're creating in our own mind. And we can change that. But a lot of people, when they're in it, they can't read the label when they're in the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're deep in the ocean and you really can't see above the waves to actually see whether or not you are underwater. That's a lot of times the analogy that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And I've heard somebody say in the past that beliefs are thoughts we keep thinking, right? So I think it kind of aligns with what he said, that because it is almost like it's created within the mind. So it's a very tricky process, right? Because we're trying to, get above something that is sort of self-created. That's kind of like running the show in a way, right? Any strategies for us to, let's just say in the example, to peek out of the bottle or to peek above the ocean line, to even realize this belief system is not serving me. Because sometimes we know it is not serving, but it's not enough to actually make that shift.
Absolutely. So what you're talking about is kind of this bargaining that happens in the mind, right? Like I should do this, but I want to do this.
Yeah.
I should do this, but I want to do that. And in hypnosis, Fitz Pearls calls this top dog underdog thinking, right? So it's like the angel and the devil, right, on the shoulder. And so when it comes to the belief system, that the beliefs will not change if you're not making a decision. So what's, again, through experience, going towards the outcome that you want, and the experience will give you the proof of the decision that you need. So when you're experiencing a different belief system, you're experiencing altering rules and doing something that alters the rules, then you're well on your way. You're getting yourself out of old belief systems that don't serve you.
Yeah.
And it's so having experiences is so important. Nothing happens when we're just thinking about it.
Absolutely. I think it adds a whole different layer to just, take the first step, but it's a lot more actually go have the experience and almost letting that recode, right? Like almost like having evidence and proof of how to see it differently or have a different experience of it. I think that's very interesting. And one thing I was going to add briefly, and I did an episode recently on the podcast 20 months after that, but that was my experience because I want to talk to you about, coping tendencies and things as well. And for me, the one thing that used to be very I would say difficult for me to release was having a glass of wine anytime I felt stressed. And it wasn't that I was drinking in copious amounts every day, but there was definitely I would say, a unhealthy linkage between stress and the need for it. And I tried many, many times in the past for a month here, a month there. And it wasn't until almost 21 months ago that I was in the right mind space to make a very conscious decision to fully release alcohol from my life, which is not that I promoted to everyone, but that was my choice. And I think it was such a transformational experience for me when I was able to shift very deep core beliefs, even about the value that alcohol was bringing to quotations, calm my, my stress, right? And I think having that actual experience really shifted my even understanding and belief that we can actually make permanent changes without having to avoid it or, impair our social life, like, which has really been my experience. So when it comes to coping tendencies, maybe give us a big, broad understanding, first of all, why do we humans have those different coping styles? Then we can get a little bit more detailed.
Yeah, and just before I answer that, I
Mm-hmm.
want to go back to, and it's cool because you made that single-minded decision. So you definitely walked away from the top dog, underdog thinking. You moved away from debate and you just, this is happening.
Yeah.
And that is what makes us having new experiences so much easier, right? Like, because as soon as
Mhm.
we make a decision, like, for example, this morning, I was working with corporate clients and we're working on behavior flexibility in terms of they want to do more corporate talks and they're really like shy in front of people. So I literally took them to the mall and I told them to go and talk to all of these people like in the food court. And when I first mentioned it to them, they froze. But
I would imagine.
right. And they looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And I'm like, go. Right. And after they spoke to like the second or third person, their nervous system began to relax. And I'm watching them and I saw it. And then it became easier. And they ended up talking to, I think, like five, six, seven different people. And
Hmm.
after they were done, they were like, yeah, that wasn't bad. Right. So the deer in the headlights is like the instant thing. But once you jump in, the more that you think about it, you can talk yourself out of it. The more you just go and do it, you're proving to yourself that you can do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it changes something so deeply core. It's almost like recodes itself. So that becomes a new baseline, right? And I think that's what I experienced. And my family lives in wine country. So every restaurant, when I visit them, is a winery. There's no way around it. My husband's too enjoys his craft beer. Everybody has it around me on a regular basis. And it has absolutely no impact in even my desire to. It's not that I'm like holding on and trying not to partake. I have a deep non-desire to not, or a deep desire to not partake.
Yeah.
And I think that is just such an interesting experience for me because the decision was so clear and it was really rooted in what is important to me. And I also got clear what it was costing me and clear on what I thought was the benefits that I was getting from the glass of wine that were actually not what I thought they were. So it changed my belief, but also the behavior. So it's quite a exciting example. Yeah.
It is an exciting example, even for you as a human being, to be able to let that go, to be able to open up and see more of what's around you. So you can enjoy the people around
Yeah.
you more. You can really enjoy the environment more, which is good.
Hmm.
So, in terms of coping
Hmm.
stances, okay, so Virginia Satir is an extremely well-renowned family therapist. Um, and she came up with a metaphor to describe how it is that us as humans cope in these different ways. Okay. So, are we good for time? Can we do a tiny little bit of role playing and this can be
Yes.
really fun?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's do
Okay.
it.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So go like this, point to the wall, not at me, point to the wall and go, it's all your fault.
It's all your fault.
Awesome. Good job. Okay. Put your hands out in front of you like this, palms facing the ceiling to the wall and go, whatever you want, I'm here for you.
Whatever you want, I'm here for you.
Awesome. Good job. Index finger on your chin to the wall and go, if we were to analyze this, we would find.
If we were to analyze this, we would find.
Awesome. All right. And then just move your body all around. Okay. Awesome. A plus. Good job. And so what these are the four coping mechanisms.
Mm,
And every single human being on the face of this planet fall into these pockets of coping. So the metaphor that Virginia Satir came up with goes like this. There's 4 people in a boat and there's a hole in the boat is sinking. Okay. So there's water coming up in the boat and the boat is going down and the blamer says, who put the hole in the boat? Waving the finger around. The pleaser or the placater says, I'll swim to shore so the boat won't sink so fast. Right? Palms up in the air. So people that aren't seeing it and they're just listening, palms up in the air. And then index finger on the chin. At this rate, this boat's going to be sunk in 3.4 minutes. Right? And the distractor, right? Moving your body all around. Look, there's a bird. Right? So not one of them is fixing the hole in the boat. They're all caught up in their own coping mechanisms. So when us as humans, and even dare I say, going back to like us in Canada, we're actually kind of a spoiled bunch and a little bit of entitled because we are in the safe country, like what you were talking about right at the beginning. Like we're in this safe place. So a lot of times we're making up these massive fires that we think that we need to put out. But we're coping it. We're either blaming others or blaming self. We're trying to fix and please. We're trying to compute, find out all the information before I do anything at all, right? Or we're distracting by, some people distract by smoking or overeating or drinking or whatever, what have you. And the way out of it is to really level with what's going on. So really catching yourself to be able to level with blame and just leave blame alone and just being like, oh, well, okay, letting things go. Even blame, so blame others or blame self, putting pressure on self is unuseful.
Yeah.
So yeah. And, or if you're the type of person that pleases and fix, you want to create boundaries. People that please and fix, they're in a lot of guilt. And the thing about guilt is that guilt is only for kids to learn right or wrong. It has nothing to do with adulthood at all. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, or computing. So computing, people can come up with all kinds of ideas and get nothing done. So they're coping by trying to learn so much, but yet they're not doing anything. And then again, back to distracting. But any of these, it's like people can go stagnant in these roles and all of a sudden they're just not living their life.
Yeah.
So when we start to level with what's happening, because there's lots of great things about these too, like blame, okay, well, it is what it is, or there is some pleasure in pleasing and fixing. There is some, it's like loving, caring, being a mother. And of course you want to compute when you're doing your taxes, right? Like,
yes.
Or you want to distract by going on vacation, have your eyeballs look at something different. But it's really about leveling and making sure that you're not going over the top and keeping yourself in check through even your belief system, right? If you're in so much guilt and your belief system is also in with, I need to fix and please, I need to be of service, it's unuseful. So again, it's having the experiences of leveling through. But these are definitely the 4 top coping stances. But when people level, they're going through, they're equally distributed. Okay. When people are in an unuseful coping stance, then they're stuck in one heavily.
I see.
Right? Yeah. They're either blaming the world for everything that's going on with them, or they're running around doing everything for everybody. When you're too heavily in one of these coping stances, you're actually not living your life.
Absolutely. That is so clear. And I love, like, my brain really loves when you compartmentalize things and put frameworks in. And that is my love language, frameworks. So I really love even the role play, right? So clearly define all 4 of those. And I think like the final question I want to ask on this topic here, and I've done a lot of work on myself with Dr. Sim Ryder's coping styles, and she has like 12 different ones, which is a very different framework. So it's not even that I can make like easy parallels. So I'll have to think about it. But one of the things that her work has helped me do is like find like the antidote to recognize I'm in that coping style and get myself out of it, back to that neutrality that you talked about. So in your framework of those 4 coping styles, if somebody notices that they are, like I said, heavily in one of them, what would be maybe like the first step that somebody can do to regain their neutrality?
Yeah, forgiveness,
Mm,
right? Forgiving self, forgiving others. A common emotion that I find many, many people in is resentment,
mm-hmm.
anger,
Yeah.
right? Even for the tiny little things, but it ends up creating an unuseful vibration in the nervous system. And so when people are stepping more into forgiveness, they're in this humble, neutral zone. Um, they're also taking a step back to breathe, to I mean, one of the techniques that we teach our clients, it's this very beautiful technique. It is called Ho'oponopono, which,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, I'm certified in Ho'oponopono, so that's
Oh, okay.
wonderful.
Well, then, yeah,
Yeah.
then you know all about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a very then I don't even have to tell you,
No,
but your
no, yeah.
listeners, yeah, your listeners know that it's such a powerful technique. So if we are caught up in any unuseful emotion, any unuseful coping stance, boundaries and forgiveness would be, like, put simply, would be the biggest things. Also through hypnosis, neurolinguistics is getting the mind in the right place. Because
Mm-hmm.
you said something earlier that I wanted to mention too about seeing in your mind, right? So wherever our mind goes, our body follows.
Yeah.
So whatever we're making up in our mind, whatever we're seeing in our mind, our body follows, right? Like, even
Yeah.
we cannot unexperience, we can't unsee, unfeel, unhear. So
Yeah.
even the things that we're creating in our mind that are not even real, our
Yeah.
nervous system is also um, reacting to it. And I'm
Yeah.
using that word strategically. We're reacting to it. Whereas when you notice your coping stances, when you notice you need a beliefs alignment, when you notice these things, then you're responding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So all of us as
Mm-hmm.
humans need to step into this more of a response way of being,
Yeah.
truly.
That's beautiful, actually. I love that distinction of the reactivity mode versus the when you're maybe in a bit more self-governance, right? You can then respond. And I think that's beautiful. And the one thing I would just quickly add on the Ho'oponopono conversation that for me, I was raised by very holistic grandparents.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
so my grandma's still alive in her mid-80s, still practicing, and my grandpa passed away a couple of years ago, but he was just the practitioner in the family, and it really inspired my career from like very little. And Ho'oponopono was one of those things that been part of our family for a very long time. But it wasn't until as an adult that I decided to study it and actually understand it from maybe a more like practical standpoint that I really got to understand what taking total responsibility really felt like for my emotional safety, for my emotional resourcefulness, resilience. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of times, even when we blame or we, put the whatever outside of us, like I always now look for the role I play because I'm the one interpreting the situation, right? And, bringing that back in and feeling responsible for the experience. And I think for me, that has helped really calm the blame and the guilt so that I can clean my side of the street as opposed to waiting for other people to do whatever on their side of the street. So I just wanted to add
Which,
that piece in there.
yeah, which may never happen, right? They may never
Exactly.
change that side of the street, and that's okay,
Yeah.
and that has to be okay.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then being in acceptance of that, I think really is really calming. Right. And I think too, the more we work on our side of the street, then the situations we experience shift. And maybe that is how their side looks a little cleaner. Sometimes I do see that happen, but I think it's just such a beautiful modality for everybody listening to even, research a little bit. And it's simple, but it's also very profound. So yes. Entry
And
for,
for people, and oh, I just want to add to that. So even people, if they're not um, as passionate about the technique itself, I would even encourage to do the breath work that's associated with it.
yeah.
Because that alone, like I'm also a yoga instructor, and I learned actually the breath work before I even learned the Ho'oponopono. And then
Nice.
when I learned Ho'oponopono, I was just like, huh, this makes sense, right?
Yes.
So even if you're not sure where to start with the breath work.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And for those listening that wanted to learn more about you, connect with you, tell us where we can find you, all the good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, it's my name's Ryde, so you can follow me on Instagram at Ryde, and it's tree, just like a tree, Tree.
Mhm.
Last name Ryde. You can go to burlingtonhypnosis.ca, so that's the Burlington Hypnosis Center, burlingtonhypnosis.ca, or if it's a corporate client, it's businessgrowthresults.com. So we actually just opened a training center in Burlington too. So
Nice.
yeah, very exciting. So either one of those, burlingtonhypnosis.ca or businessgrowthresults.com, either one can get to me.
That's perfect. And we're going to make sure to put the links in the show notes as well for those of you that just want to click and go straight to her website. This was such a delight, Tree. Like I really, really enjoyed our conversation, and I really love how you framed things into very tangible ways that we can actually really take action from this episode. So thank you so much for your generosity and your time today. I really appreciate you.
You're such a pleasure. You're such a kind pleasure soul. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Confidence from Within. If you enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at naturally.joyous, and I will be sure to tag you back. I would also love for you to leave us a review on iTunes so you can help us support our show. Stay healthy and happy, and until next time.